Hi, everybody. I'm Tom. And the
Hi.
reason why I'm coming to you today is to share some information and some stories, some brief stories about my being widowed. This is intended for people who have had a little bit of time, hopefully, around 5 years or more, where it doesn't have to be exactly 5 years, but I'm going to share some things that would not necessarily be appropriate if you were newly widowed. So let's go forward, okay? Thank you for joining me today. Um, my name's Tom. My last name is Ward. I am not a professional. I'm not a clinician. I'm not an expert. All I have is my own story. And my story has matured over time. It's evolved. It wouldn't have been the same story I could have told even 5 years ago or 3 years ago. And my story today that I'm going to share is shaped by some of the people I've met who are also widowed. And prior to me having my loss, I didn't really know anyone that I knew of was widowed. So we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. I'm going to say some things that are from my own personal experience that may or may not be anywhere close to your experience. And that's not meant to offend anyone. I'm not, all I can do is tell my story. So as you listen to this video, which I realize is one way, just filter what doesn't make any sense to you and just leave it. But if maybe something that I share today, you'll find it relates to you in your journey, your walk. I was widowed at age 50, and that was a while ago. I was married. We were married 25 years, and my wife passed suddenly without warning. So that right there's a difference between your loss experience and the specifics, the timing of it, how long it's been, how long you were partnered. There's probably some people listening who weren't necessarily married, but still lost the person that they love. I've met people now who were engaged and their partner died, or people who just were partnered and their partner died. And the world would look at us and say, oh, well, you were not really married, so you're not really widowed. Well, that falls under the category of myth. That's not true for us. When we lose someone and we have that profound human experience of loss, regardless of the circumstances or including all circumstances and all relationships, that's a life-changing event for us. And then we survived that. And so right there, I would say or coach or guide us listening today, watching, that we shouldn't pay so much strict attention to what other people say or think or believe about us, because they have not walked in our shoes. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things I encountered or did early on. When I was first widowed, my life suddenly, dramatically changed. And now I can reflect on what I did. I was very, very, very concerned and very involved and very invested in supporting others, especially our children, understandably, and family, understandably, and friends. And I put a lot of time and energy and focus. It was needed, it was necessary, but I almost did it, looking back now, to an extreme. And in so doing, I overshadowed or overlooked my own walk through the loss, my own feelings and I just didn't have that perspective. I was kind of fractured, really fractured. And looking back now, I can see that self-care was put on the back burner for me. And maybe you've done that. Maybe you're putting a lot of time or effort or energy into helping others through your loss. And that's okay. It's really okay. Everything we do is normal for us. But now that we have a little time has passed, maybe it's time to look at, take a step back, take a break, and say, you know what? How am I doing? And just think about it in light of what I just shared about my own experience. Now, today, I'm basically a different place in recovery than I was early on, a far different place. I lost my wife when I was 50, and now I'm 74. So I've had quite a bit of linear time to get my balance back and figure things out. So I've been able to keep a job. I've been able to stay socially aware and connect, and I could go to corporate functions and be sociable. And I couldn't do that early on. I was basically, as someone once shared with me, alone in my dark room, developing my negatives. I didn't realize it at the time. So that's the first thing I'd like to share, is that some of the early coping strategies, things that we instinctively do, may not necessarily be appropriate or as effective or effective at all as we have more time since our loss. So let me go back and talk a little bit about what others think about us, or how they feel, however they act around us. Before I was widowed, I had my own stereotype in my brain that widowed people were women with silver hair who knitted, or I know I'm exaggerating, but that was my perception of people. I didn't know anyone who was widowed up until age 50. Yeah, I had heard about, or I had gone, whatever, but I really didn't know that widowed people, you could become widowed at any time. I've met people now who are in their 20s and become widowed. I've met people who are of any possible age range between 20 and my age. And so that blew my myth out of the water. But some people who meet us now that we've had our loss, and it's been 4 or 5 or more years, they may have some perceptions about us that are not necessarily true, such as, I thought that, it's been enough time now that, you're in a different place, or you don't necessarily consider yourself a widow. Well, guess what? I'm going to be widowed for the rest of my life, whether I repartner or not, because I have that experience. I've internalized that experience. So for anyone to say, I understand why people say that, because they don't know. But I would put a filter, get a filter, install a filter here and in your heart, and you can listen to what people say. They're not meaning to hurt us or be judgmental, but it can come across that way. And so people may say, oh, I didn't know you sold the house. Wasn't that kind of quick? Or what are you going to do with his truck? Well, you know what? I don't know. You don't necessarily know what you're going to do with any tangible item or anything that was part of your relationship. So how could someone else external to you make that kind of a statement or a judgment? Well, people do, because they don't know. Anyway, so I've already talked a couple of things. We've shared a little bit about this early strategies or things that I did are not necessarily appropriate or working right now. And I want you to consider that for your own journey. The other one is to put a filter up, because people are going to say and do what they're going to say and do. And we don't have to take it all in. And we don't have to be, defensive about it. We're widowed. We are different from people who have not had that experience. So those are my thoughts about that. Now, what about self-doubt? Well, it's fair to say that a question might come up from time to time. Am I really making any progress? Well, that's a good question. And we can answer that for ourselves. I find I've made room for the memories, because there's years of memories in my married life. I've made room for them. The room is up here. I stress that word room because the memories I've not let them occupy my whole house, meaning my whole living experience now. At the time that I was widowed, the only perspective I had was what was and what happened. What was and what happened. That's all I had. So now I've gained a lot more perspective, and I see the value of living today fully that I didn't necessarily see immediately following, or even in the months and a few years following my loss. So I don't wear a bracelet that has my wife's initials on it. I don't, but some people do. I don't necessarily leaf through our wedding photo album, but I know that I have that album, and I know those images, and they're stored up here. But whatever you're doing is normal for you, and it's okay. So I live my life. I have started a nonprofit for certain, to minister to other people. I've reached out to others. These are things that I've done that help carry me forward. And I'm confident you're going to find, if you haven't already, you're going to find your own way to continue your journey, because we know we can't go back. So we're compelled to figure out how to do this now. I know I maybe have touched on a couple of things that are sensitive. So please, I'm not sharing anything as a judgment or say you should do this way or you should follow what I'm saying. You have to turn your own flashlight on and point it in the direction that you want to go. Now, how did I gain any of this perspective? Well, let me share that with you. There were two huge events that happened to me that shaped my life. The first one was the unexpected loss of my wife. That totally shifted dramatically the course of my life from age 50 until now. The second dramatic event that occurred, I found myself on a certain day in Florida, surrounded by some 350 to 400 people I didn't know. I knew no one. And I was in a hotel conference room. I was at my first event, which is called Camp Widow. And I realized that I'm surrounded by people whom I don't know, but I know that I share a life-altering experience with them. We're all widowed. The organization was started by a woman who at a very young age became suddenly widowed. And I'll talk more about how to connect with Soaring Spirits International in just a moment. So at that camp experience, basically I came away after that weekend with a new awareness that I'm okay. It's something that we can't control in life. People we lose people. It was my first time at age 50. But for many others, for thousands of others, they have this experience at a much earlier age. Now, I don't spend all day long connecting with widowed people knowingly, but I know how to reach men, guys that I've met through my camp experience over the years. And I know I can call them and say, you know what? I needed to talk to you just for a minute. I just, for whatever reason. And I hope they know that they could reach out and contact me. And I would be there for them, because I understand that we can still have ups and downs, highs and lows, no matter how much time since our loss. It's just natural. So let me just review some of those. Let me just point out some of the highlights. I mentioned Camp Widow. You can go online and probably find your way to Camp Widow. But the umbrella organization is called Soaring Spirits International. That just happens to be the name of it. And they've been around now for 12 years. And there's a widow's blog called widowsvoice.com. I want to make sure I have this right. I'm looking at my chart. Widowsvoice.com. You're welcome to go there and check it out. Remember, all the people that you're seeing or connecting with or hearing from or listening to, they're all widowed. Everybody's vetted by the people who operate Soaring Spirits. The other one is called, there's a Widowed Village online forum called widowedvillage.org. There's another forum, and these are available 24/7, all year long. So it's not like you have to go there, at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's all the time. It's on the internet. And so you might take note of what I'm sharing about, but just go and just sample it and see if there's something on there that relates to you or your experience. Doing this alone, recovering from being widowed alone is tough, but you've made it this far. I remember going to some grief groups early on. Well, did I fit in there? Well, one of the errors I made was I compared out. Well, that's not me. Well, their story doesn't make sense to me. I don't like what she just said. I was comparing out. And what I learned with perspective is that it's better for me to compare in and try to find something that does relate to my walk or how I think or how I feel at that time. Compare in as opposed to compare out. So when you go to these different resources, the widowedvillage.org or widowsvoice.com or Soaring Spirits Facebook page, please give it a try, give it an honest try, and say, you know what? I'll try it again. I'll click on another time and see if there's something relevant for you. I know there is. It was for me. So let me close by saying I want to thank you for taking a few minutes to engage with me. And I want to encourage you to reach out to someone else who's within this community of being widowed, and it'll make a difference. I really believe it will. Thank you for joining me today, and the best of luck to you. Take care. Bye-bye.